How can you learn to accept the world if you haven't learned to accept yourself? I think that a lot of our life is spent, observing and analytical of who we are and how we interact with the world around us. But how much of our time is devoted to our readily, you know, exception of who we are, exception of our expression, exception of, you know, how we are. And that's not saying that, accept that we're stagnant or accepting that, you're not going to change, but accepting the parts of yourself that need to change. Making sure that you're aware of them, not just putting them behind you. And what I found is those cycles that keep showing us those negative parts of ourselves, keep showing us those little situations where, like, dang, I want to put this behind me. Dang, I want to address this. Dang, I want to do this, this, that, and the other. I think that any form of actually getting rid of that problem, getting rid of that tugging, is exception. It's sitting there with that. Not necessarily accepting it as true, but accepting it as something that's relatively fact. Sometimes you have to gaze upon those parts of yourself and say, wow, I still have a little bit of work to put in, but I'm going to accept this. I'm going to accept the feeling that it incurs and let it pass. Give it freedom. Don't hold it hostage. Realize that, the feeling is a feeling. Realize it's, sometimes a product of a thought, sometimes a product of a reaction, but all in all, it's a reaction to yourself. It's a reaction to the way that you are. And, the quicker you come to accept that, the more, or the less frequently stuff like this can happen. I'm realizing that the more you accept those parts of yourself, when they come about, it's not so much of a shock. It's so much of a, okay, now I'm calm enough to actually address this. Now I'm calm enough to actually act upon something that can change this. Because if you're constantly like, oh, this is coming up, this is about to happen, oh no, I'm stressed, I'm in the same cycle again, then you're stuck in the cycle. You're stuck thinking about the cycle. You're stuck thinking about how you're not doing anything. But if you already accepted that cycle is something that happens, and accepted that, you need to actually look upon this thing and actually see it for it to change. We hide from ourselves too much, and that's why I feel like sometimes can't change those parts, because we don't know what those parts look like. We don't take the conscious effort it takes to, see those parts of ourselves and actually experience them. Experience them to a degree of understanding. Understand that, sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes those forms of expression aren't necessarily inherent to your character, but they're inherent to who you are right now. They're inherent to your mind space and how you're allowing yourself to sort of fill the room. That's why I feel like it's important. And it's not just a presence issue when it comes to accepting yourself. Because, presence only gets you so far. It's not just about, neglecting those parts of you inside that are trying to scream to get out. It's about sort of placing them in front of you. And that's what I feel like presence is in some senses, is placing yourself in front of yourself. Making sure that you're the one piloting, you're the one seeing this, you're the one experiencing. And I think the thing we experience least, that we have most, is ourselves. Think about how often you interact with other people, how often you do this, that, and the other, but, how often do you give validation for your own expression? How often do you just sit alone with yourself and just are thankful for the fact that you are you and no one else? I feel like everyone needs to realize that beauty within them. I don't necessarily think it's an ego thing. I don't think it's an arrogant thing. I don't think it's a narcissistic thing. I think it's a self-love thing. And I think that everyone needs to experience that kind of self-love, at least in general. We're put here and we don't know how long we're here. And we have every potential and every capability to, express that love to ourselves, to give ourselves exactly what we need. And of course, sometimes it feels good from other people, but it is my current belief, at least, that we should all stand on our own 2 feet when it comes to our own validation, our own expression. That's not to say we can't get it from someone else. That's not to say we can't accept it from other sources, but to say that we realize that our source is the one that's, befitting of us. Sometimes other people don't want to do this. Sometimes other people want to do that. But do you want to do this? It's about giving yourself enough credit, enough strength to do exactly as you want, without necessarily some other stimulus to do so. And part of that, I feel like, comes with accepting those parts of yourself. Because a lot of times we'll try to hold ourselves back and wait for someone else to come save us. Wait for someone else to come do that push for us. Be like, nah, you got to get in this situation. And then they'll push us into it. Sometimes you have to push yourself. Sometimes you have to put yourself in those situations. And it's not necessarily like, oh, you have to put yourself in this situation to overcome it. But, there is no situation to overcome. There's a person to overcome, and that person is yourself. And wow. Honestly, it's just such a beautiful thing to think about that, the world isn't bad. It just is. It's us. It's always you. It's always you being the reflection of the moment, the reflection of everything, and everything being a projection of your feelings. And that's why I feel like it's important to accept yourself, because then you start seeing them. You start seeing why this little part of your dialogue or this little part of your day got you angry, because you see the little negative parts of yourself that are expressed in that certain something. You see the way that you're reacting to this. You see everything about yourself. And I think once you understand yourself in that totality, then it's not necessarily something that you learn to tiptoe over, but it's something you learn to address. You can't help heal a wound you don't even know it's there. You can't remove a knife if you don't know where the knife is in your body. You're just feeling pain. And I feel like sometimes you have to tune into it. Tune into that pain, understand where it's coming from, and then remove it. Then start trying to heal it. I feel like a lot of us try to heal without removing the knife. And I think that's, I heard of that analogy from Malcolm X, but it wasn't in regards to the self. It was in regards to society. But I feel like it works in the same accord. We kind of put these knives in ourselves, and society puts this knife in ourselves that we don't know about. And we either remove it ourselves or have it removed. But regardless of which, it's up to us to sort of locate that and take care of the wound once the knife is removed. Not just let it be there, not let it get infected, not let it become part of who we are, not let it become a permanent thing. Everything's going to leave a scar at some points, but, scars represent healing. Scars represent, strength and triumph. And we have to sort of be, affectionate towards that. Be intimate with that understanding of our pain and understanding of our healing. They have to be in reference to each other. You're not healing from nothing. You're healing from something. And the thing that you're healing from is yourself. And it's not necessarily your fault, though. Healing from yourself is just healing from the way that you've taught yourself to be, healing from the way that you've accepted yourself to be, and sort of these limiting beliefs that we have of ourselves. And accepting, as weird as it sounds, accepting yourself actually gives you more freedom to be more. Because it's saying, okay, I understand what this is for this moment. I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep adding stuff. And you're not stuck in that place of, oh, let me look back and try to address this and figure out this part and figure out this. Because your life isn't necessarily a goal of just you figuring out. It's a goal of you experiencing. And in my head, accepting yourself and doing these kind of mindful activities allow you to experience life to a greater depth. And that's kind of what I live for, is that depth of life. And I feel like a lot of people do, because, it shows us the beauty of our existence, the beauty of life itself. And it sort of projects meaning into a world where, meaning has to be, believed. Instead, it's instantiated. It's sort of like, let me just look at it right in front of me. Let me look at the wonder, look at the curiosity, look at the beauty that is just in front of us. And part of that just comes with accepting yourself, because then you start accepting the world. Then you start questioning, not necessarily a questioning of like, why is it this way? Why is it this way? But, I wonder why it does that. I wonder why this is that way. And it opens the door to so much more, creativity. Because then you start questioning yourself. Oh, why am I this way? Why did I do this? Why did I? You start trying to understand the way of the world. And I feel like that's to some degree what real intelligence becomes. Understanding of how the world is. And that, goes hand in hand with stuff you learn in school sometimes. Because it's just another specific instantiation of your intelligence. Understanding force, understanding, your own magnetism, your own energy. All of it starts with, just being present enough to accept yourself and being strong enough to accept yourself. Because sometimes it's not something you always want to look at. And I was realizing that with myself. There's parts of myself that I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to look at you. But, recently I've just been like, not necessarily saying that's going to be a part of me forever. Not even saying that it's a part of me now. But I'm addressing, something I probably didn't address. And, to acknowledge that you aren't, you sometimes have to, realize that there's a possibility that you are. Not necessarily living in a delusion in the sense of understanding your expression. But, I think it's okay to live in a delusional state, in a state of utter belief in yourself when it comes to your aspirations and your development, where you're going from here and how you are now. In regards to your past, it's exception, because there's no such thing as could have and should have, only did. And you have to realize that, you were reflected in those actions. You're reflected in everything, whether or not you were conscious enough, and maybe that was the problem. But regardless of which, it's important to just be accepted. And, that's not saying don't get on yourself for stuff, but, give yourself grace. It's just about understanding yourself. Understanding that, you play a role and sometimes you play incorrectly. Sometimes you don't do it in accordance to how you want to do it, and you do it in accordance to how other people do it. And it's about understanding how you want to and doing that. And freeing yourself from sort of the shackles of yourself. But also putting them back on. Because what I've realized is any discipline, any motivation in a sense, any freedom of self is sort of gained by, instead of letting everything else limit you, or everything else put you in the shackle, you sort of put yourself on that routine, that discipline. Like you want something, you make yourself go get it. You don't just sit there. It's one thing to have intention, it's another thing to express action. And that's, I feel like, the end goal of it all, the end point, to make it real, and make yourself real in many ways. Not just real in the sense of physically real, like you could touch it, but real in the sense that who you are and any effort that you've made to sort of develop this self is done by you. People always talk about, okay, sometimes people are well written. I feel like well-written people just write themselves. And, yeah, I feel like that's utterly what's important. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I'm back from my little excursion. We got a lot more on the way. I just ordered I have a lens coming in today that's going to allow me to do outdoor videos beautifully. So, those are on their way. Very much on their way. I'm participating in 2 podcasts, probably today and tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. I've never really been on another show or another person's podcast. I also accepted a sponsorship deal, which is gonna be shown soon, I suppose. But yeah, so stay tuned for that. I hope you guys enjoy everything that's coming y'all way. I sure appreciate you guys. I appreciate everything you've done for me. Keep being good, keep being great. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're being honest with yourself. Make sure you're being accepting, but also disciplined. Understanding, but also, wanting to take action and realizing that you aren't necessarily your past. You are your reaction to it. So whether or not you dislike it isn't important as whether or not you act upon that dislike. So take care, keep being good, keep being great. Everybody's beautiful. And